That's what professional boxing is about. Got to be clever, got to be smart, and not get hit.
It's what he does that makes him a hero, and what the other fellow doesn't do that makes him a cow. It's just as simple.
You could hit him, he can't hit you. That's what the science of boxing is all about.
We are happy to greet Rick and Liv in the project about Kasdamara. Rick is Grandmaster in martial arts and former amateur boxer. Good afternoon.
Okay, there we go. Okay.
Let us describe Kas in 3 words. Can you please tell what would be those words?
Just in my opinion, he was the very pinnacle of the boxing trainers, without doubt. He was the best. Primarily because he knew how to work with people. You know, I didn't personally know him, but I was an amateur boxer. I followed him. As I said, I think he was, without doubt, he was the best. Angelo Dundee probably second, but Kus. I met Muhammad Ali, did a show, kind of an impromptu show with him, the night that he fought Floyd Patterson the final time in Pennsylvania. Floyd Patterson was, obviously, kind of small for a heavyweight. But Kus did a fantastic job with him. Jose Torres, of course, would be another one. I think Kus knew more about boxing. As a matter of fact, I remember him telling Muhammad Ali, I believe probably was on an episode of The Tonight Show, about some of the mistakes he made that he got away with because he was abnormally fast. And I know something about that because I'm 69 years old. My hands can still move so fast that it's very difficult for the human eye to follow it. I'm very, very fast. Not nearly as fast as I was, obviously, when I was younger, but my hand speed is still, many people call it unbelievable. Kus made a point to explain to Ali that certain things he did, had it not been for his natural speed, which was amazing for a man his size, he would not have got away with it. The peekaboo style that he developed, it's been seen by other fighters. I did a show at Nassau Coliseum, and on the card that night, Dr. Umangi, the great Burmese Bando practitioner, fought a boxer, agreeing not to use his feet. But Mangi used that peekaboo style quite successfully. So I think probably Kus's introduction to that probably carried over to maybe other fighters that were not even his proteges. So that was something that I think that particular style of fighting was definitely Kus D'Amato. It traces all the way back to him. So my opinion of Kus is that in terms of just purely a boxing trainer, a boxing coach, his knowledge, I think, was beyond what most people's were, and I think he had a way of maybe getting it to the fighters. When he trained Tyson was at the top of his game. When he was no longer the trainer, that changed. So I think it speaks for itself. Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Rick, so how do you think, what stands behind all this? I mean, how come Kus knew how to nurture a professional, a champion? Because we know that he didn't box himself like professionally. He didn't have like specialized education. So how come did he know these things?
I think probably, like anything, he probably, well, one of the nicknames the media gave me years ago was street smart, streetwise, another real deal. I think you either have it or you don't. And a lot of it has to do with your environment, how you grow nonsense about, wow, I can defend against a knife. No, you can't. No, you can't. Don't even go there, okay? I think probably that was the key. He knew the street, you know, he knew and he knew the psyche of the people. I think that's the probably more so than anything would be what I would judge were his strongest. Just again, looking at how he trained and having seen films of him working with fighters, he knew how to get to their heads, and he was amazing. I mean, you know, there's no other word to describe it. He was just amazing. So, yeah, I mean, I would have been a professional fighter. I probably would have wanted him to train me. You know, had I decided to be a professional fighter. I didn't go that route, but because I was told I had the privilege of working with professionals, and I was never going to be a heavyweight. So, you know, you're not a heavyweight. But had I decided to go that route, I probably would have done my best to possibly get Custom Motto in my corner.
Thank you. Is there any quote of Cus D'Amato that you are fond of?
I really just think all the way around, it would be hard to really pick. I think any certain particular area that he excelled in, any particular area that you would say, well, that's what, I suppose, you know, if you're really looking at something identifiable, you know, this is Cus. I think that peekaboo style probably is the most significant because it seemed to kind of carry over to some fighters. Now that particular style, you know, speaking as just someone who knows a bit about fighting, in the boxing ring, you know, that's okay. I can see weaknesses in it in terms of actual combating, you know, when it's not a trophy on the line, when it's your life on the line. But that was his imprint. I mean, Floyd Patterson, I think all the fighters that Cus worked with, Patterson would be the one that I would say most embodied that particular, shall we say, imprint of Cus himself. That was just, you know, Floyd was master of it. I think, again, Floyd Patterson was a great fighter. He tended to be a little easy to knock out. Sometimes they call that a glass jaw. But he was small compared to, you know, back in Cus's day, back in those days, there were only like 8 weight classes. There wasn't this wide range of junior this and light. No. There was 8. So if you weighed 100, if you weighed 1 gram over 175 pounds, you had to fight as a heavyweight. So that could mean you could be 175 and a quarter pounds and be in the ring with someone who was 300 pounds. Kind of one-sided. But that's the way it was. Frankly, I stopped following boxing when it got too many organizations, too many champions, too many titles, too many weight divisions, and plain out too corrupt. Back earlier, you know, during Cus's heyday, let's say, you know, you had flyweight, bantamweight, featherweight, lightweight, welterweight, middleweight, light heavyweight. You could follow it. Now, with all of the weight classes, I don't know who's champion, and I don't care. There's too many of them, you know. I mean, we saw the same thing in martial arts tournaments. You know, I was the champion this year. I was the champion that year. As opposed to what? As opposed to who? You know. So I think Cus was in his era. You know, he produced valid, undisputed world champion. No doubt about Jose Torres, no doubt about Floyd Patterson. And again, you know, Floyd was not a big man for his weight division. Today, probably Patterson would have been more like maybe a, I don't know, junior heavyweight or some, whatever they call it today, you know. He was just not pound for pound, you know, against some of these guys. But Customato, I mean, his skill at training fighters was, in my opinion, beyond what anybody else did. I think he understood fighters. I think he knew how to get to their heads. You know? And that probably came as a result of his environment and where he grew up. You know, formal education is fine, but there's nothing like experience. And I think that's probably what Cuss had in spades, yeah. And I guess had I been a professional boxer, I would have probably tried to seek Cuss out, you know, as a trainer. Again, Angelo Dundee would probably rank, you know, maybe number 2. But Angelo Dundee had the benefit of having Muhammad Ali, who was, without question, without doubt, had something that, you know, were there people, when I did the impromptu little thing, it was just kind of an impromptu little thing, but I tapped Ali in the rib cage with my foot, you know, we were just, you know, forcing around a little bit. But his speed for a man his size was just absolutely incredible. When he was fighting at his best weight, which would have been about 206 pounds, he was unbelievable. So Angelo Dundee had a very, very unique talent that Cuss didn't have. Floyd Patterson was a I call traditional fighter. He didn't have, I think, any great things except he didn't have that amazing speed that Ali had, and Ali was a bigger man. Cuss knew how to bring out whatever a fighter had. That was his best characteristic. Cuss could bring it out. That's what made him. He was a wise man. Okay, not just smart. He was wise.
He was. Rick, if we would choose 3 words that would describe Cuss, what would be those words be?
I think you could see it in him. Certainly in times I watched him interviewed, or he cared about his fighters. They weren't just pieces of meat. He cared about them. I think that you know, maybe like a racehorse owner cares about his horse. You know, I think Cuss really genuinely cared about his fighters. I think he was more, perhaps a little more personal. I don't know if that's the right word, but he cared about them. You know, he wasn't throwing them out there just to make them both rich. I think he had a genuine affection. I think he loved the game. I think that's basically what it was with Cuss. I mean, it seemed to come across in interviews that I can remember him giving, and just his interaction with fighters in general. Even when he was telling Muhammad Ali as an example, Muhammad Ali was not his fighter, but he was pointing out. Matter of fact, I remember standing up and showing him what he was talking about with Ali. And, you know, he was not a young man then. And I do know that was on one episode of tonight's show. Don't ask me which one. I don't know. But I do recall seeing it. And in a sense, he was giving advice to, one could say maybe the enemy. I mean, after all, Floyd did fight Ali, not successfully, but not too many people did. But Cuss still took the time to say, you know, you're making mistakes that you're getting away with, because right now you have that unbelievable speed. I think what he was saying, what happens when you get a little older? If you still fight, you make that same mistake, and then that's going to come back at you. So I think Cuss just cared about fighters. You know, I don't think they necessarily had to be his fighters. So he had, you know, there was a lot of humanity in him, I believe.
How can you assess the contribution of Cus D'Amato into world boxing?
Well, again, I don't know what else I could say. I think anyone who bothered to tell the truth would have to say, if you took all of the trainers and put them, evaluate each one of them, you know, whatever standards that might be, you know, and that's the problem, isn't it? You know, today in today's martial arts, you've got all these young kids, the titles, and you know, to be quite frank, I've seen so many of them, and I think, okay, you can dance, you can, your fighting ability, I don't see it too much, you know. You're trying to make a dance out of something that, you know, real fighting's not pretty, okay? I know a little bit about it. But if there were such a standard, if you took all of the trainers who ever trained professional fighters, and you just went down and evaluated each one of them on the basis of their merits, I believe Cus D'Amato would stand head and shoulders above most of them. Not necessarily because he created X number of champions, but because he didn't let them get destroyed. I mean, I've known people that I've even used to box with a bit that became professionals. One in particular who was, as an amateur, top of the heap. But in that pro rank, that's different. This particular fighter never went above, I believe, Ring Magazine, number 10 of the top 10. He was killed by a hit-and-run driver, but at the time of his death, he was punchy. I don't think Cus let that happen to his fighters. I think he had I think the compassion was there, you know. If he would have seen someone to that point, I think he would say, that's it. It's not worth it. You know, get it. We're getting you out of here. I think that's what made him, you know, possibly, I won't say unique to the game, but certainly one of maybe the few. I mean, let's face it. People race greyhounds, and then when the greyhounds, the dogs are just thrown out like trash, you know. Well, there's boxing trainers who do the same thing, you know. Once the fighter's used up, I don't think Cus was like that. He had that compassion, you know, and so his fighters, they had a longevity beyond, you know, they could get out of the fight game and still hold a relatively intelligent conversation. They weren't slurring their words. He was just an all-around, I think, caring person. And although, you know, I'm going by just what I've seen, what I've read, what I've seen in interviews, I think it came across. It definitely came across, you know. If anyone had Cus D'Amato as a trainer, I think they were deep fortunate. Any of them, not whether they were champions or not. I don't think that's the issue. You know, people. There's a little thing called talent. You know, I have certain talents that have been noted by, you know. For instance, you know, in 1988, you know, one of the major media magazines said he is perhaps the most knowledgeable and effective weapons disarming instructor in the nation. Well, that's true. I set the standards. Now everybody in their blind Antilles thinking they're doing something, and I take one look at it and I say, well, you just got killed, you know. You had a gun here, and you took it all the way down here, and it came down. Oh, no, you're not that quick. Nobody's that fast, okay? It's a thing called knowledge, technique. So if someone had talent, Cuss could bring it out. He knew how to do that. But even if they didn't have a lot of natural talent, he had that ability to do the best with what he had to work with. And I think that came across in probably anybody he ever trained. I mean, when we talk about Jose Torres and Floyd Patterson, we're talking about world champions. But I'm sure there were others who maybe never got to a world championship that also would be a good example of what he was able to do by communication and by direction and by showing. Again, street smart, or ring savvy, as it's called, when you take it into the sporting element. Cuss just light years ahead, I think, of any of the other trainers. And I think anybody who was in the fight game, if they had Cuss as a trainer, they were indeed, fortunate. Because I just don't think there was anyone out there that was in his, in his class. He was beyond what the others were, But again, why, that could be argued. But the fact that he was, I don't think that can be argued. I really think Customato, and I'm sure there are people, I don't know, sports commentators and maybe other people, maybe referees, they would say the same thing. He trained and he took care of his fighters. I don't think they were just statistics. They were not just numbers. They were not just purses. They were people. And I think that came through. He was, to me, Customato, just again going from interviews and things, he seemed to be a man who truly exhibited some humility. He wasn't arrogant. He wasn't flamboyant. He just simply did his job, and the results, I believe, spoke for themselves. So, I don't know what else I could say, but is to say, if I had been a professional boxer and I had worked, the former light heavyweight champion Matthew Saad Muhammad, I was training him somewhat privately to when he wanted to make a comeback, trying to train him how to become about a 3-round fighter because of the massive amount of scar tissue that he had. And I was trying to show him how to fight close and, use methods that was going to protect because he would bleed so quickly. And I knew that. I knew that if he got tagged, he was going to bleed. He was going to be bad. So, I was training him hopefully to do that, but unfortunately he passed away. And there were other things that prohibited basically a comeback. Maybe had Cuss had Matthew Saad Muhammad, he maybe would have changed his style somewhat, and so that he wouldn't take tons of punishment before coming alive. I think Cuss knew how to imprint his particular brand, as he did with Floyd, his particular brand on his fighters. I think that there was something about, certainly with Jose Torres and Floyd Patterson, you could almost, or I could anyway, almost sense that watching some of what they did, you could see that they came from a similar, or not identical, but a similar path. And that would really go back to who the person is behind them, so who's the person training them. Two different physiques, but you would see that element of what became known as the peekaboo. You could see that. So I think that was his stamp, that was his brand. That's the brand you put on everything. Some people wore it a little better maybe than others. have any particular styles. I just do what I think whatever works. Yeah, I'll use it. You know, a little different than boxing where you have different rules. You know, different rules. I have played with professional boxers much younger than me. None of them can hit me. You know, but then by the time they realize that I've got their hands strapped, you can't do that in a boxing ring. But I just look at my sojourn into, brief amateur boxing, and just one of many things, and that over the years took shape. But analyzing it just strictly as a boxer, Cuss put his stamp on every fighter that he ever trained. I think he did not attempt to carbon copy. Okay, this worked for Floyd Patterson, maybe this worked for Jose Torres. In other words, there were similarities in the fighters that he trained. There was also differences, and he was wise enough and smart enough to realize that you can't take an individual. If you take many of the more traditional martial arts, the class moves as fast as the slowest student. And, somebody will, well, this kata, we are fighting 4 to 8 imaginary opponents. Well, you know what I have to say to that? You better hope like hell they stay imaginary. Because if you think you're going to fight 4 to 8 people at the same time, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen, okay? Get the ego out of your brain, But Cuss knew how to, I think, bring out the individual strengths, individual talents of individuals, because you take Taekwondo or Tang Soo or any of the Korean martial arts where the majority is the legs. Now, if you have someone who's 6'2" versus someone who's 5'2", and you've got a leg that long versus a leg that long, who do you think's going to help you manage it? You see, Cuss knew how to take his fighters and bring them to a point where he would exploit or help them with their greatest strengths. So, one word for Cuss D'Amato, genius, because that pretty well settles that. Yeah, okay.
That's what professional boxing is about. You gotta be clever, you gotta be smart, and not get hit.
It's what he does that makes him a hero, and what the other fella doesn't do that makes him a coward. It's just as simple. You could hit him, he can't hit you. That's what the science of boxing is all about.